Pastor Eric Haven from Woodside Bible Church with us to lead us in the invocation. If you would please rise for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Mayor Slater and Council, I'm happy to be with you tonight. On a normal evening like this, I would be in Clarkston, the city of Clarkston. So I bring you greetings from the Clarkston City Council, and Mayor Joe Leginski's there. So it's a blessing to be with you tonight. Let's pray, shall we? Lord, we thank you so much for the opportunity to lead and to govern. We thank you for the privilege you've given us to be your co-worker in that respect, to lead the people that you've created and inhabit this community. We're so grateful for everyone who's here. We're grateful for our city and for those who have invested so much over the years. I thank you, Lord, for this proceeding tonight, and I pray wisdom for every participant, for every council member. Give clarity of mind and thought. Take away tiredness that occurs at the end of the day like this. And I pray that the results of this meeting might resound to your glory. We pray this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, kids, for leading us in the pledge this evening. Thank you, Pastor. The Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Campbell. Councilmember Gottlieb.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington.
Here.
Councilmember Teets.
I did receive correspondence from Mayor Pro Tem Campbell that he would be out of the state this evening, so I will move that the Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Mayor Pro Tem Campbell at the regular City Council meeting of February 23rd, 2015, due to being out of the state.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Pennington that we excuse the absence of Councilmember Campbell at this evening's council meeting due to being out of the state. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Campbell. Councilmember Gottlieb.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yes.
Motion passes. Our first order of business this evening is certificates of recognition and special presentations, and we have 4 very good recognition and special presentations this evening. Leading us off on C1 is A Healthy Me is Drug Free, with a presentation by Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart. Good evening, Cindy.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you some people that are here from Troy Families for Safe Homes and the Red Ribbon Campaign. Alicia Tyson is the chair of the Red Ribbon Campaign.
Hi there. Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Elisa Tyson, and I'm not only the chairperson for the Red Ribbon Committee for Troy Families for Safe Homes, I'm also a Troy substitute teacher, and I love Troy schools. My kids, I have 3 children, went to Troy schools. A couple of them already graduated from Athens. And as I was substitute teaching, I noticed that there was a class whose teacher had taught them all of the Red Ribbon songs that I had written back in 2001. Lorraine Hogan, are you here? Okay, thank you. Lorraine, would you come up here too, please? She just did a beautiful job. She plays the piano, and she's a gifted musician. And I was so impressed that I invited her class, as many as them who could make it, to come and present one of the songs. Now, this year, the National Ribbon theme is Love Yourself, Be Drug-Free, and Troy Families for Safe Homes has supported and presented the Red Ribbon Campaign because it's the oldest and largest drug prevention program. And we have 2 students, and their names are Megan Kuntz, she's from Hill Elementary, she's in 3rd grade, and Shabd Sheen from Leonard. And I would like those 2 students to come up, and they will tell you a little bit about the history of Red Ribbon.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Megan, you may get started.
Hi there. Could you bring that microphone down for her? Thank you.
Kiki Camara
grew up in a dirt-floored house. He worked his way through college. He served in the Marines. He became a police officer and joined the United States Drug-Free Enforcement Administration. They sent him to Mexico to investigate a major drug ring. On February 7, 1985, he was captured by the drug lords. Sadly, he was tortured to death. Friends and neighbors began to wear red ribbons to remember him. Anti-drug groups started to form.
The first Red Ribbon celebration was in the fall of 1988 in Kiki's memory. Now every October, many schools and communities in the United States take a stand against drugs. They wear red ribbons, sign their names on pledge forms, and sing songs about being drug-free. Mrs. Hogan's first grade class from Leonard would like to share one of these songs called I Like Myself.
Okay, Mrs. Hogan's singers, please quietly come forward. And Shab, you stay here. And you can all just stand as close as you can to the microphone.
I like myself, I like myself, I like my body and my health. I like myself, I like myself, I take good care of me. I eat good food, I eat good food, it helps me grow and helps my mood. I eat good food, I eat good food, I take good care of me. I get enough sleep, I get enough sleep, I go to bed without a peep. I get enough sleep, I get enough sleep, I take good care of me. I exercise, I run and jump and play outside. I exercise, I take good care of me. I ride my bike, I rollerblade, I wear my helmet to be safe. I look both ways before I cross the street. I take good care of me. I take a bath, I brush my teeth, I keep my body nice and clean. I take a bath, I brush my teeth, I take good care of me. Vitamins and medicine I will not touch or take again, but only when my parents say I take good care of me. Because I like myself, I like myself, I like my body and my health. I like myself, I like myself, I take good care of me. I take good care of me.
Very nice.
And Meliz Malvin is the president of Troy Families for Safe Homes, and Jim Naughton is the vice president. And I would ask Meliz Malvin if she would come up here and say a few words.
I'll say very few words, because how can you follow that act?
I know.
As always, I am Meliz Malvin. Thank you so much. It is such a joy. We've been coming here. I've been coming here for about 5 or 6 years, and you're so gracious to allow us to come. And I just want to say thank you. So I'll let you get on your way. A couple of the kids are going to bring their pledge forms. In the elementary schools, they do a lot of fun activities where every day they do something against drugs and they sign the pledge forms. In the middle schools, we hand out licorice and they sign the pledge form as well.
Great.
No, okay. Yep. That's okay. So thank you very much.
Thank
Go
you.
hand the pledge forms, and then we'll go downstairs for pictures.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Slater, give this one over to Mr. Henderson, Councilman Henderson.
Okay, and if you don't...
Thanks, kids. Thanks for all you do. You sing very well, too.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and you can go back and find your parents.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you for what you do. Say no to drugs. I'll pause for a minute if the kids need to get home. We can pause for a second while they get home. It's a tough one to follow, Wade. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you. I have to say that they're very well behaved.
Yes, definitely.
Well, our next order of business is C2, a certificate of recognition and appreciation to Commissioner Wade Fleming from the City of Troy for his years of service on Troy City Council. And as I said, Wade, that's a tough act to follow, but this is really an honor for me today to present a proclamation. If you could, I'd like to meet you at the podium.
A little different on this side.
It's a different view,
Yeah.
from this side. Wade, it truly is an honor for me to be here tonight to present this service commendation to you, because it is certainly well-deserved, and if I could, I'd like to read it into the record. Whereas Wade Fleming served on the Troy City Council for 9 years, from November 2005 to December of 2014. On November 4th, 2014, Wade was elected to the 16th District of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. And whereas Wade and his family moved to the city of Troy in June of 1982, when he was transferred with ITT United Plastics, he retired from automotive products in 2004. And whereas Wade became very involved in his community through his church as well as a variety of nonprofit organizations, including Christmas in Action, and playing Santa for the Friends of Troy Seniors. I wish I had a picture tonight to show. Members since 1997, the Flemings have been very active in the Woodside Bible Church. Wade served as a deacon and became an elder in the church in 2005 when the new church was built. Wade and his wife Paula, if we could get Paula to say hi, had taught classes for young married couples preparing to take their wedding vows. And whereas Wade has also served organizations beyond the city of Troy, including Promise Village, which is a therapeutic residential treatment and counseling center for struggling children and teens located in southern Michigan. Wade has served on the board of Promise Village since August of 1998 and is currently the chair. And whereas in his spare time, Wade enjoys spending time with his wife of nearly 41 years, Paula, son Mark, daughter-in-law Nicole, and grandson Cyrus, who we heard from earlier this evening. He also loves hunting and traveling around the country on his Harley-Davidson motorcycle. And whereas the quality of life that the city offers is a result of hard work, planning, sacrifice, and leadership. Thanks to Wade, one of Troy's dedicated volunteers, our quality city services will continue to thrive and are key to making Troy the greatest place to live in the state of Michigan. Now, therefore, be it known that the Troy City Council takes this opportunity to express its sincere appreciation and recognition to Wade Fleming for his distinguished service and his many contributions to the betterment of the city through his work on City Council. And be it further known that by donating his time and talents, Wade Fleming has furthered the ideals that contribute to enriching our community. Troy is very fortunate to have citizens like Wade who give so much time and energy to make our community a great place to live, work, play, and of course raise a family. This is presented this 23rd day of February 2015. It's signed by myself, all members of City Council. Wade, congratulations. Thanks for all you do for the city. Thank you so much.
Mayor. I get to say a word here?
You can, or you can wait. There's another one coming. Say something.
I'll tell you, I didn't know what to expect tonight, but when you've been married almost 41 years and your wife tells you to go somewhere and show up, you mind, really well. But this is very humbling. I wasn't expecting this. I didn't know what to expect, but I certainly appreciate it. I just feel so blessed to have served in a community as wonderful as Troy, and it's just been a blessing. So you said there's something else.
Yeah, if you could just stay here, Wade, I'd like to ask State Representative Howerlich to come up. I think he has something that he wants to present to you also. So I'll turn the microphone over to Martin.
Martin.
Congratulations. Thank you. On behalf of Senator Nolenberg and myself, I have a State of Michigan special dedication of tribute to Wade Fleming, and it's short, it's 2.5 paragraphs. Let it be known that in grateful recognition of his devoted service to the city of Troy, Wade Fleming is hereby recognized on the occasion of his succession from the council to the position of County Commissioner with Oakland County. On behalf of the entire community who has benefited from his 9 years of service, we offer our congratulations and gratitude. Whereas Wade Fleming has been an active councilman, visiting with residents, listening to their concerns, and investigating firsthand how the council may work for the benefit of Troy's people. Wade followed up on matters brought before the council in a professional and responsible manner, looking for solutions and positive outcomes. And I can attest to that because we did some of that work together on occasion, including, I remember, a home on Rochester Court. In a period of economic downturn in the city and state economies, Wade Fleming focused on positive opportunities that have fueled Troy's recovery and growth. In special tribute, therefore, this document is signed to salute Wade Fleming, a loyal and dedicated friend to the city of Troy, as he has honored and continues to honor our community with his service, signed by State Senator Marty Nolenberg and myself, Martin Howerlich, State Representative. Okay.
Make sure it's not on video. Could be on video.
Thank you.
Martin,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Wade.
so much.
You bet.
Again, this is a bit overwhelming and humbling. Martin, you had so many years of service. Thank you for your service as well. And to all you sitting up here, I'm just really humbled and a bit overwhelmed. It's much different being here versus up there. But I appreciate all the service the staff has given and everything that your council gives. You don't get here by yourself. You know, it's sort of like the old Southern saying, it's like a turtle you look up and find on top of a fence post. You look around and say, he didn't get there by himself. Well, I certainly didn't get to be a city councilman or county commissioner by myself. I have my wife to thank, Paula, almost 41 years, and she's a public servant serving in the Troy School District for 14 years now, and still serving. And my son, Mark, and wife, Nikki, and grandson, Cy, Dane, you mentioned we already heard from him tonight. We'll get him out of here. We won't hear much more, maybe. But thank you so much. But there's so many other people. You guys up here have been so supportive, and the city staff has been so supportive. And I just look forward to continuing to serve this community. And really, it is overwhelming. I just feel so blessed to be a part of it. So thank you so much. I'm just really humble. Thank you so much, guys.
Next on the agenda is C4, a legislative update by Representative Martin Howrleck. So I'll ask Martin to come back to the microphone. Good evening, Martin.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Slater and members of the City Council. And we've come a long way as a city. I remember when I started coming to council meetings as a high school student, we had this little, very small podium, and now we have this big thing here, and of course all of the cameras and everything. So this is really, really exciting to see the city, and of course all of the development. You guys are doing a good job. You know, it's good to see Troy and the state doing much better. Congratulations also to you, Councilman Gottlieb. Welcome aboard, and I'm sure you will do good things. And it's really remarkable. As somebody who used to be on the council here, and the meetings would continuously run very long, to flick on the internet stream at 8:15 and there's nothing there because you've concluded business. And I think that's just a sign that things really are going very well here. And you guys are certainly doing a good job of exploring the budget and different unique and alternative ways of doing things. Congratulations also to the City of Troy for once again being the safest city, and it really means a lot when we are the safest city, and we are not too far from areas where there are a lot of crime. And because of good policies and good policing, we can rest well at night. And if somebody has the audacity of trying to commit a crime in Troy, they will most likely be apprehended really quickly. And these are all really good things for Troy's residents. It's been a pleasure also working with the city manager, the city attorney, and also the police chief on legislation. One of the very helpful things that I can turn to is that when there's legislation that has an impact on the city of Troy and the city of Clawson, I can go to the folks that are on the front lines, if you will, of administering. And I have received excellent advice and very helpful advice in a number of areas, one of which is a bill that we're getting ready to reintroduce. It's identical to one I had introduced late in 2014. I think we're going to get some more traction on it as it's earlier in the cycle now. And the way things work is if a bill is not signed into law by the end of the legislative session, it is effectively dead. And so, because so many bills were not concluded during the lame duck in 2014, a lot of bills are being reintroduced. And so the bill I'm referencing is a fireworks bill. And I know both Troy and Clawson have had great concerns with the current fireworks statute that's on the books. And effectively what I've done is worked with the city attorney, and I want to thank you. You've been very helpful, and my staff and some other members of the legislature in putting together a bill that would effectively limit the prima facie right, if you will, of lighting off fireworks to the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th of July if a local unit of government opts to limit it to those 3 dates, which is very beneficial because then there will be no ambiguity as to whether or not it's legal to shoot off fireworks on December 23rd, for example. Additionally, there was some language in current statute which is not clear relating to possession and transport, if you will, of fireworks by minors, those who are under the age of 18. This will clarify that language, and so that if the city wants to take action in prosecuting anybody, that the statute will be very clear in that regard. Another good thing that recently happened was the legislature approved a supplemental appropriation to ensure that local units of government are not on the hook for the special May 5th election. This recently happened and has been signed into law, is my understanding. So the May 5th election that's upcoming will be something the city administers but is not responsible for the cost. Speaking of the May 5th election, we want to make sure that folks are aware that there is a special election on May 5th, and that the May 5th election I distributed to members of the City Council some nonpartisan cliff notes, if you will, put out by the House Fiscal Agency and the Senate Fiscal Agency. They are distinct and unique. They don't operate unified, so you will see the numbers a little bit different. It's only because their analysis creates a somewhat different conclusion. Effectively, what we're doing on May 5th as voters is voting on whether or not we want to increase our sales tax in the state of Michigan from 6% to 7%. However, with that comes a significant number of tie-barred bills. In other words, and we do this in Lansing a lot, it's something that is alien. It was alien to me as I came from the City Council. We don't do that here. I think once or twice we may have. If this ballot proposal fails, all of the bills will fail. So they have been signed into law, contingent, and will not be in force until or unless this sales tax proposal passes. And so at the end of the day, you will end up with somewhere between $1.8 and $2 billion of additional revenue by way of taxes and fees in the state of Michigan. And the last page on both the House and the Senate Fiscal Agency analysis summarizes where that money will go. The vast majority of it, over $1 billion, about $1.2 billion, when it's finally in place by fiscal 2018. $1.25 billion will go to roads, of which 20 through Act 51, 21.8% will go to local units of government. So the Act 51 formula is not changing. That's like the third rail. I mean, it was hard enough for the legislature and the leaders of both parties in both the House and the Senate and the governor to cobble this together. So Act 51 is not on the table, although I know a lot of folks across the state, and I know Troy always had some concerns about Act 51. But the functional element of this is the $1.25 billion for roads, about $260 million for earned income tax credit for low-income folks. The theory there was that sales tax hurts the working poor more than any other class of taxpayers, and therefore the earned income tax credit expansion would help them to pay for this tax increase. Registration, we also have over $300 million for schools. And as you can see, there's some money also for the general fund. So that's a little bit about what's happening. That's a big deal. We want to pay attention to that and make sure our constituents are aware that there is a May 5th election. We want to make sure that our voters have access to information. Certainly, if the city wants to link to any of these analyses, that can easily be done. Oh yes, I should mention my committee assignments. So we all have new committee assignments with the new legislature. I'm on the Criminal Justice Committee, the Judiciary Committee, the Oversight and Ethics Committee, Tax Policy Committee, and then I'm also on the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, which is a bicameral committee. It is comprised of senators and members of the House, and what we do is review administrative rules. We don't promulgate them, but if there's something that is of concern, we can either veto it or send it back for another draft. And so that is actually a very important committee that is not well known, and a couple of things were before the committee in the last 2 years. One was charitable gaming, and another was special education rules. And the special education rules were very problematic for a number of the number of families in the special education community, and were pulled. So that was a good thing. So charitable gaming will most likely continue. That's quite a saga. And with that, I will leave you this evening. If you have any questions, I'm certainly here to entertain them as well.
Thank you. Any questions for State Representative Hawryluk? Councilwoman Hoderick.
Thank you for being here tonight and updating us. You know, I appreciated when you held the Roads Town Hall here in our council chambers last June, I think it was. It was very informative and very instructive as to really how bad our roads are across the state. As you know, we ponied up to fund our own road work here. We're still going to have huge challenges going forward, and we'll be making some budget decisions soon. An editorial writer in the Detroit News called this proposal in May, you know, it stinks to high heaven, but we need to hold our nose and vote for it. I know you've been a supporter of Governor Snyder. I know this is a difficult subject. When residents come to me and ask me, what do you think we should do? I don't know how best to answer. If it doesn't pass, there's going to be a huge impact here locally on our budgets, and our roads are in such terrible condition. Are you supporting what the governor has going on with this? You know, what should we be telling our constituents here in Troy?
So that's an interesting situation because my office is obviously not allowed to tell people to vote yes or no. I personally can take an opinion. I'm more in favor, honestly, of a more traditional approach where we change the what we pay at the pump, if you will. And we would be, and you folks know, I don't like to spend money or tax money where we don't need to, but we'd be very hard pressed to tell people that if we set a rate 20 years ago at 19 cents a gallon, and it can remain that way in perpetuity. In my ideal world, in our ideal world, that would have had some sort of an adjustment that would have kicked in because, and this isn't, and if I can kind of look at it more broadly, I mean, we have a number of areas in state government where we have things that are fixed and hard numbers, and the upside of it, I guess, is that you can review it and maybe adjust it up or down depending on the efficiencies that happen. The downside is that any time you want to change it, especially if it's going up, you have people that will accuse you of being in favor of big government and socialism and whatever. But, you know, we have public roads. We need to find a way to pay for them, and the money that we could get 20 years ago doesn't go as far as it did 20 years ago, and so we do need to make those adjustments one way. This is a mess. This proposal is an absolute mess as far as I'm concerned. That was my major objection, and you have all sorts of things that are in here. I mean, this is the Cliff's Notes version, but if you get into the bills, and I had to print out everything because I had an 86-year-old constituent down in Clawson who wanted everything, and we're more than happy to do that, by the way. But it's a big pile of stuff, and there's a lot in there in dealing with changes. In other words, the new things that will come into place, dealing with minority contracts for certain percentages of contracts, dealing with public transit options in the city of Detroit that we don't have eligible here in Oakland County, the Wayne County carve-out, if you will. And then there's a section in one of the bills dealing with at-risk students because of the school element of it. Effectively, what happened during our lame duck was they were cobbling together enough votes, if you will, to get a package. It was quite unfortunate because it's not like this is a new issue, and I really don't understand. This is me speaking personally. Why we cannot, from time to time, make adjustments in our hard number at the pump. So, and the truth of the matter is we're going to go from, if this passes, 6% sales tax to 7% sales tax. And we also need to understand that there will be a significant increase additionally in what we pay at the pump because the floor is set at 41.7 cents per gallon. And right now at the current rates, you're looking at 19 cents plus 6% of the wholesale rate, which is probably about another 10 to 12 cents. So you're going from about 29 to 30 cents a gallon to 41.7 cents a gallon off the bat. That's a pretty significant increase. So that you're looking at a $2 billion increase, and the amount of revenue that the state generates, because everybody talks about the $52 billion budget, but much of that are federal remittances. So what we're looking at, as far as actually pristine money collected by the state of Michigan in the state of Michigan, and not federal remittances, you're looking at about $23 billion. And $2 billion of $23 billion is a lot of money. And so it is a pretty significant tax increase, and certainly it's well in excess of the $1.2 billion that was proposed for the roads. So I leave it to the individual voter to decide how they want to vote. I can tell you, and of course all of us can come up, however many people there are in this room, we can come up with that many different plans. But the key is, because people will come up to me and say, hey, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that? I said, well, if the speaker couldn't do it, as a leader of the House, it's difficult for an individual member to do it. It's because of the whole issue of collective action. I think one way or another we need to find a solution, because there are clearly, drive in communities that are perhaps not as financially wealthy as the city of Troy, and they don't have the resources to spend the money like the city council elected to do last year. The money just isn't there. So in these communities, we may not live in them, but we certainly drive on their roads. They impact us too. That was kind of a circuitous answer, but hopefully that gets to the root of what you were trying to find out. Or do you want to know what happens if there's a no vote? Well, not being the Speaker of the House, but both leaders in both parties in both chambers, as well as the governor, have refused and have decided that the strategy is to only offer this as the option on the table. So, and I suppose it's so as not to cloud the issue. Prudence being what it is, another plan will have to come into place. It'll probably be more along the lines of a traditional, and this is just me reading tea leaves, more along the lines of a very simple traditional tax increase at the fuel tax at the pump. I think that from a political standpoint, I can't see how anything as complicated as this would ever come to light again. I really don't. And probably some reallocation of general fund money, but so many things have. Let me shed some light on that too. And it was one thing I wanted to mention. We have. It's come to light, and this is actually extraordinary, $9.8 billion of promises that were made. In other words, tax credits, and that the state of Michigan is currently on the hook for, $9.8 billion. And Treasury and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation is not sure that that actually encompasses everything. They actually said they don't know how many dormant mega tax credits are out there. So this is actually blowing a major hole in the budget, and it's the cause for some negative supplementals that were passed last week in the House and the Senate. So that is putting severe pressure on the budget. There are solutions out there, whether or not they will actually happen. Actually, you can make it go away almost overnight by getting rid of the Michigan business tax, which I don't want to get too granular on you, but the gist of it is there are potential options, but right now, today, we have a potential state liability of almost $10 billion payable over 30 years, and we have no idea from year to year how much that's going to be, because it's dependent on operating activity of companies. We have that. The legislature did a sales tax on the difference phase out. In other words, tax breaks for people that trade in vehicles to new automobile dealerships. That has a huge budget impact over 6 years. They had to do a phase in. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and they had to hold harmless the school aid fund. So that's happening, and we probably shouldn't have done that, but it's happening anyway because we couldn't afford it. And then we have some other pressures that are happening on the general fund relating to the fact that we're taxing a commodity, gasoline, that has significantly dropped by over 50% at the pump. And so that alone, you just do the math at the back of the envelope, 5 billion gallons of fuel are sold in the state of Michigan, so that's going to cost the state about $600 million a year, the status quo, just because the fuel price has dropped to that extent. So the ability to easily fund roads through general fund appropriations by moving things around becomes much more difficult. Then you have to talk about, and there are options that I would be in favor of, but you would only be able to probably cobble together a few $100 million. So if you want to get to that $1.2 billion, you're probably going to have to look at adjusting your fuel tax rate.
And there isn't a quarrel about the $1.2 billion figure at this point, right? We know that's what we need for the roads.
Well, you and I might not quarrel about it, but I can assure you there are people that are willing to quarrel over that number.
Right.
Yeah.
But in general, it's not those of us looking at the roads and really understanding the challenge. That is the challenge on an annual basis to come up with that money, correct?
Sure, absolutely. That is the challenge.
And now our general fund has more stresses, so we're not going to be able to turn to that. Listen, I'm not a fan of Proposal 1. I'm looking at making some big expenditures in my house, and the Hodericks will get hit hard if this passes. So as I ask these questions, I'm not asking it because I'm pro or con. I'm trying to understand what the options are because our road situation is serious. So I appreciate the honest conversation and your thinking on it.
Sure.
Thank you.
And just for the record, and I'm sure most of you up here know this, but for the audience in general, I-75, there is a major project planned, and almost all of that money is supposed to be federal money. And the federal government, by the way, has some issues with their own transportation fund and their own budget, the fact that they haven't been doing omnibus budgets in a long time. So we have that promise from them, but they actually don't have the financial commitment because they're doing things on a year-to-year basis. But we know that that road needs fixed, and it's not going to be done by MDOT. It certainly isn't going to be done by the city of Troy. It's the federal government, and it's in really bad shape. So when folks contact you, you can let them know that, MDOT through the federal government has that commitment to fix the road, but it's probably, at least in Troy, the worst road in the city, I think.
No question. We can talk about roads for a long time tonight, for sure. Councilman Pennington.
Martin, thanks for coming out. I just got a quick question. You mentioned the charitable gaming issue, and then you kind of chuckled. Is that just a quick version? Is that an ongoing saga, or has that been put to bed?
Oh, it definitely hasn't been put to bed. I chuckled because it is it's a long-running dispute between the legislature and the gaming board. Because it used to be administered by the lottery, and then it was shifted over to the Gaming Control Board. And let's just say that, there's a belief that there should be charitable gaming, and it's actually quite absolute coming from them, and trying to kind of get them to the middle ground is a little bit difficult, and so there's been a lot of back and forth, if you will. And, rules were approved, and they yanked the rules, and they set out new rules. And then JCAR, the Joint Committee, last year, I wasn't on it last year, but told them they needed to come back. So it's kind of a Mexican standoff, if I can use that phrase. The gist of it is that there's a lot of tail chasing going on, and at some point, somebody's going to blink, we're going to have a solution, and then everybody will be able to kind of know what the status quo is going to be, the new status quo will be.
Thank you.
Councilman Gottlieb.
Thank you very much for coming and giving us the information. I know I appreciate it. I'm sure I speak for everybody. It's great to get that directly. To switch gears on you to an entirely different area, you mentioned one of your more experienced constituents asked for some substantial amount of information. I wanted to know if somebody wanted information on a committee that you are involved in for special education rules, how would they obtain that information directly, and how can they get involved if they want to pursue that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, and certainly contacting my office either by phone or by email. And the easiest thing to do is just to call the office at, and I'll give the number. It's it's toll free, 877-248-0001. Again, that's 877-248-0001. There's a lot of information. I mean, this is one of the beauties of the technology age. There's a lot of information available online. The committees, if you go to michiganlegislature.org, that's another really good portal if you want to look at, if you really want to look at detailed information. The analyses that I've provided to Mayor Slater and the members of council here on the roads proposal, the transportation package, that is available by going through the michiganlegislature.org legislative portal, and you can look up Michigan compiled laws. Anything you want, you can pretty much find there. It's becoming much more user-friendly as well. But if you need any assistance, kind of where to start, contact my office.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Once again, thanks, Martin, for coming this evening. Just as a little editorial on the roads from me, that this is the most important issue to the people in the state of Michigan. And to take the most important issue for everyone and try to solve it in a lame duck session this is exactly what happens. It becomes a mess. And I think they've had a long time to try and solve a problem, and they didn't do a very good job of solving the problem. And I think they're going to find out that the people are angry. I think they're angry that this problem did not get solved, and you basically are giving them an ultimatum.
I can't disagree, and I will say that, you know, for those of us in the legislature, it was made even harder because in order to get the votes in the Senate, they would bring up and put on the board in the House without notice bills they were discharging from committee. So we would be in there, and suddenly a bill would go up on the board, and nobody even knew anything about the bill. So we had to vote on those in order to secure votes in the Senate so that they would get their 2/3 that they needed to get the sales tax proposal on the ballot. It was messy. And by the way, there's nothing like going to bed at 9 in the morning after not having slept in 2 days. And that takes a long time to recover, especially when you're not 18.
Yeah, and it's not a good way to make decisions either.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
There are no carryover items this evening, so we will move to public hearings. E1 is a public hearing for an industrial development district, an IDD, for HTC Global Services at 100 East Big Beaver. Good evening, Nino.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Per request and with the tacit agreement of management, we thought it might be a good time to have a review of this issue. Not a study session review. I'll try and keep this very brief. It won't take anywhere near as long as the road issue. Public Act 198 of the mid-'70s is the Industrial Development District and Plant Rehabilitation Act. What it is in a nutshell, it's an opportunity to attract industrial or manufacturing type companies to your community. It was made to attract companies from outside of Michigan to your community. And the rationale or the reason that you get to make the attraction is that you cut their millage rates in half. The law itself states that you can cut the rates in half on buildings and equipment. Troy City Council back in the late 70s decided that buildings would not receive a tax abatement. That didn't hold true. We had 2 buildings in Section 26 on Larchwood and Woodsley, and the infamous Delphi building that Councilwoman Hoderick is quite familiar with. Those are the only 3 buildings we've ever granted a tax abatement to. So in short, what we're looking at here is attracting companies that will bring in a lot of personal property, and they pay a lot of taxes on the personal property. So the caveat is we'll give you a 50% tax break. The rationale being is that we'll get half of the money that we're not getting at all right now. In theory, as your assessor, I would have to tell you that I'm not in favor of tax abatement. I think that if there's something wrong with the personal property tax, it's wrong for everyone. As a practical matter, though, you're competing with every other community in Michigan. If you don't offer some kind of an abatement, they'll go to Auburn Hills, they'll go to Clawson, they'll go to Ferndale, they'll go to Detroit, wherever they can get the best deal on the tax rate. So you're pretty much forced to play the game. It's the way you attract companies. We try to bring companies from out of state, but probably 15 years ago, the legislature, there used to be a caveat where the city of Troy could tell a company that was going to leave Troy, go to Auburn Hills to get a tax abatement. We could say, no, you don't get the tax abatement. You can't leave here and get a tax abatement. You can leave, but you can't get a tax abatement. Well, The legislature decided that that wasn't working out for them. So you're virtually competing with every other community in Michigan. And the rationale before that was that you didn't want to compete internally. We were trying to drag companies from out of state into Michigan. Now you're not. You're fighting for every tax dollar that you can get. So in short, on tax abatements, what you're looking at, quite frankly, it was Councilman Fleming used to say half a loaf of bread is better than none. You take your half a loaf and be happy with it. As a practical matter, tax abatements can go anywhere from 1 year to 12 years. Council, probably I think in 2010, decided that we needed a more rigid way of determining how long we were going to give these companies on their tax abatement. You'll notice on the screen, this is actually the second page of the City Council Policy Resolution, August 16th, 2010. This chart helps us determine how much of a tax abatement we'll offer to any company that comes in here. I'm a little ahead of myself here because we're not talking about HTC, but this is actually HTC's chart. They're going to bring in more than 200 jobs, so that qualifies them for 6 years' worth of abatement right off the bat. They're leasing the building back through a holding company, so technically we can't give them any credit for owning the building. They pick up 1 year for that, 5-year lease, 1 year. The investment's, quite frankly, a little over $1.7 million, but it doesn't quite reach that $2 million threshold, so they qualify for 1 year. In a few moments, I'll be presenting to you their request for a tax abatement for 8 years, 6, 1, and 1. This works for everybody that you've had. This resolution is in your packet every single time a company comes through here. The other thing that you need to know about is that we do allow some real property abatement, not for the entire structure. It's called leasehold improvements. So if a company has to go into a building and renovate it to fit their company, or if there's issues with the structure itself, they can abate those things by filing them on their personal property return. So in effect, we do some small amount of real property abatement, but not for the entire structure. I think that's all I have right now, but I know you might have some questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of them that I can.
Questions? Councilman Pennington.
So the only abatement they would get on the property would be the leasehold improvements, just that?
No, this company does have personal property investment, so there is an abatement on that. And in Troy, 90% of the abatement is for the equipment itself.
Right.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about the state at all, as long as we're kind of rehashing
Yeah, I
history
hate to
here?
editorialize, but yeah, I mean, the state is making an effort at this point in time to eliminate industrial personal property, which was a big part of this. They want to make it more friendly to manufacturing, because we're a manufacturing state. We have the skilled workforce here to do the job. So they made this effort. There's going to be a vote, I believe, in August to determine whether we want to go forward with eliminating industrial personal property. We thought internally that that would be great, because tax abatements would go away. However, the definition for eligible manufacturing personal property, EMPP they call it, is quite narrow. The definition for tax abatement for manufacturing property includes a whole bunch of different things. This particular company is an engineering firm, HTC. They also own a medical company now where they're doing some programming and high-tech work. That qualifies under tax abatement, but it does not qualify under the new state law that's going to eliminate industrial personal property. So the definitions are much broader for tax abatement than they are to eliminate it. So quite frankly, you won't lose tax abatements because companies can qualify that don't get an exemption on their personal property. So it's not going to go away. It'll just narrow down the focus of what companies you'll be giving abatements to. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Any other questions? Councilman Gottlieb.
Just to clarify, in the Sparks Notes version of this, the only abatement is on personal property, that the real property is still being taxed. Is that correct?
Yes, in Troy. I think there's only 2 other communities that don't give real property tax abatements, but in Troy, yeah, it's just personal property and any leasehold improvement that's germane to that personal property. So not the structure itself. The other thing, and I don't think I clarified that, the equipment has to be new to Michigan. So in other words, this is equipment that you're not going to be getting taxes on anyway. They can't take old equipment and move it into Michigan. It has to be new to Michigan. So they could bring stuff from Ohio or Indiana or something like that, but it can't have been taxed here before. So this is new taxes to whatever community gets it.
Councilman Teets.
Just out of curiosity, how many applications do we receive in a year? I mean, I'm asking for rough guesstimate.
Let's just call it 5.
5?
Yeah, let's just call it 5. It does vary.
Yeah.
You know, obviously during the downturn, we weren't getting any.
Right. And most of those applications are not for small businesses. They're for businesses that are, how many applications do you get for people that are going from 10 employees to 12 employees?
We have currently on the industrial facilities roll, we have 15 abatements. Fully a third of those, 5, you would consider to be small companies. Yeah, we had one that brought in 20 employees, one that brought in 10. Several of them brought in less than $1 million in equipment. The other caveat I should point out on the policy, this is the council's policy resolution, you have to qualify for 2 of the 3 or you don't get an abatement at all. So somewhere in there, you're going to have to get 2 years or 5 years. Otherwise, you don't qualify for an abatement here. But yeah, about a third of them. But yeah, in general, I'd say they're large companies. And for the past 8 years, it's all large companies, very large companies.
Thank you, Nino. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item this evening?
I do have just a bit more to present for HTC before we go to questions. It's important that you know it's a $1.7 million investment, 200 new jobs. They've got 110 jobs currently in the city of Troy, so this is a substantial increase in employment for the city. It is an 8-year abatement. I did mention it on the chart. It's an 8-year abatement. The other thing that you need to know about the abatements is they get 2 years to get up to speed. So if 12 years is your maximum, you could actually get a 14-year abatement. 8 years is this particular one, it could go 10. They'll be in there way before that, but they get 2 years under state law to get up to full investment. So that's an important thing to know, and I think that's pretty much all I've got at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, return it to the table for resolution. Councilman Gottlieb.
Do you want me to read the entire resolution or as printed?
It's your choice.
I would like to support the resolution 2015-02 as printed in the agenda.
Moved by Councilman Gottlieb, supported by Councilman Henderson, that we approve E1, Industrial Development District IDD for HTC Global Services at 100 East Big Beaver Road. Discussion. Councilman Teets.
Once again, I'll oppose this corporate subsidy, like I've opposed many others, and hopefully our state representative and state senator can help lead the effort in putting our entire state on the same playing ground of in opposition to these sorts of subsidies. If you look at the budget issues that they're facing in Lansing, many of them are due to these sorts of subsidies that haven't been paid out, or checks were written without regard to the actual cost. And so nothing opposed to this business, but opposed to treating people differently based on handing them a subsidy versus what their neighbor receives. So that's it. Thank you.
The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes, motion passes. Next is a public hearing, E2, for Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate, and IFEC for HTC Global Services, 100 East Big Beaver. Welcome again, Nino.
Thank you again. I forgot to mention at the first one, the way the law is written, you can't grant an abatement without having a district established. So I give you all the information that you need for the first public hearing. So I really have nothing to add at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. I will open this public hearing and ask if anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this item this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and return it to the table for resolution. Councilman Gottlieb.
I make the resolution that resolution number 201502 for industrial facilities exemption certificate IFEC for HTC Global Services 100 East Big Beaver be accepted as printed.
Moved by Councilman Gottlieb and supported by Councilman Henderson that we approve the IFEC for HTC Global Services 100 East Big Beaver Road. Discussion. Councilman Gottlieb.
I just wanted to make a comment, even though I've moved that. I think in the big picture, it's not my choice to do this sort of thing, but I think that if we don't remain competitive with surrounding communities, we run the risk of losing jobs, and I think that that could stymie our growth. So I see this as, in the big picture, a positive sense if we have to be competitive. On a personal note, I do understand the desire to not want to grant that, but I wouldn't want to lose this to a surrounding community. So that's my reason for supporting it.
Councilman Pennington.
I'd also like to comment. I want to thank Nino for explaining to us it's pretty much a necessary evil that we have to put up with this. I mean, I agree with Doug wholeheartedly that, you know, tax abatements aren't something that we like to do, but it's, you know, it's part of doing business. And I appreciate Nino explaining, because we get this question sometimes about, you know, they're giving tax abatements on the property, and it's not. It's the personal the property that's brought in. It's not the building itself. So thanks, Nino, for clarifying that for us.
Yeah, I've said many times I've been up here for 5 years now, and it's been explained the same reasoning that I've used for 5 years. But I know the owners of HTC Global are here this evening, and I certainly don't want them to come away from this meeting this evening thinking that we don't appreciate that they chose Troy for their home. We certainly appreciate it. It's just some of us struggle with tax abatements. It has nothing to do with the company per se, and we thank you for investing in our city, bringing jobs to our city, and I hope you understand that. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you for investing in Troy, and we look forward to working with you throughout the years. Thank you so much. I don't see that anyone is signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents or businesses. There are no postponed items, so we will move to regular business. There are no board or committee appointments this evening. There are no council appointments this evening, so we will move to I-2, nominations. There are no mayoral nominations this evening. And Mayor Pro Tem Campbell is out of state. I know he didn't have any this evening. Is there anyone else on council that wished to move a nomination this evening? There is no request for closed session this evening, so we will move to I-4, an emergency appointment of Board of Review member. Was Nino going to make an introduction this evening, or?
Mayor, I'm sure that Ms. Dixon or I could also cover any questions that anyone has. Unfortunately, this is something that is come up. It is an emergency. You do need to waive the rules of procedure as well. So the first resolution is...
Right. I just saw Nino's name on here. I didn't know if you wished to say anything. I think the letter that we received in the packet is self-explanatory, the reasons for doing a nomination and an appointment this evening. So I will move I-4A, a suspension of Council Rule number 16, which is for appointments to boards and commissions that we hereby suspend the rules of procedure for the City Council Rule Number 16, appointments to boards, commissions, and committees in order for the city to vote on an emergency appointment to the Board of Review. Moved by the chair, supported by Councilman Henderson, that we suspend the rules this evening for Rule Number 16 so that we can do an emergency appointment. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-4B is an emergency appointment to the Board of Review. I will move that the Board of Review has scheduled meetings beginning on Monday, March 9th, 2015, and whereas a vacancy was created when the Board of Review member Eileen Turner resigned as of February 18th, 2015, and whereas City Council waived Rule Number 16 requiring mayoral nomination for the board, be it resolved that the mayor of the City of Troy hereby appoints John Howard Adams to the Board of Review for the term expiring January 31st, 2017.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick that we appoint John Howard Adams to the Board of Review for the term expiring January 31st, 2017. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I-5, a city charter clarification with an introduction by Elaine Dixon, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As of January 1st, 2014, the state law changed so that the filing deadline for City Council and for Mayor would be 15 Tuesdays prior to the November election. Our charter currently states that the filing deadline for Mayor and City Council was 100 days before the general election. So what we're asking is Council to approve us just putting an asterisk after the section of the charter that addresses filing deadlines, indicating that we will be following the state law, which dictates 15 Tuesdays, and so that there's no confusion when candidates start filing for the November election of this year.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move the resolution? Councilman Henderson.
Move I-5 as printed.
Support. Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilman Gottlieb, that we approve I-5, a city charter clarification for Section 7.9 nominations. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Is anyone on council wish to pull on a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move consent agenda and approve all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented this evening in the agenda packet. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottlieb?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you are here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items. Next is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. And I will call on Tom Stafford, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. This is not going to be your most important issue tonight. I first moved to Troy in 1972, and I have a complaint. It's not towards, and it's really towards those newspaper companies and their vendors that leave what I consider garbage in my driveway. And it's this type of thing right here. I have called both the Oakland Press and the Detroit Free Press and asked them to cease delivering this to me, unsolicited material to me, and sometimes they have stopped it, but it keeps on reoccurring. So I'm asking the council to at least think about this, consider it. Maybe there's an opt-out method or something. But the reasons I have 3 reasons for proposing this or submitting this comment. First of all, it is garbage. It's unsolicited material left in my driveway, my property. It also causes damage to my personal property. Using a snow blower recently, I run over this type of thing.
Happened to me too.
There you go. And so there's potential damage involved. And third, and most importantly, it is a security issue. When the newspapers accumulate, and they have accumulated in my driveway over a 2-week period when I'm gone, and there was, over the last year and a half, sometimes there would be 4 or 5 of these in my driveway. Certainly when I leave my home, I still leave my lights on, but it's still an indication that somebody is not home. And all I'm asking you is to just consider it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
I agree with everything you said this evening. I don't know that there's anything that the city can do about it. I will, maybe during council comments, I'll defer to the city attorney, if you want to hang around for a couple minutes. There are no council referrals, so we will move to council comments. Anyone from council have a comment this evening before I ask the city attorney? Councilman Henderson.
Yeah, just, I haven't done this in the past. I know that Councilman Tietz has in the past, but I'm going to hold office hours on Thursday, March 5th from 6 to 7 at the Community Center in Troy. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, want to chat about my grandkids, come on out.
Can we come too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Councilman Pennington.
I want to congratulate Wade Fleming again for his award and coming to council. His guidance and leadership when I came on the council were a tremendous support to me, and I want to thank him again. And I also want to congratulate the police department for being named the safest city in Michigan and the 23rd safest in the United States. When you read the article, Chief Mayor kind of deflects some of the praise, but most of it goes to the officers and his leadership, and we want to commend them.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
I just wanted to mention that everyone should have received a Troy Today in their mailbox, and I was struck when I went through it, all the spring classes, information about, when yard waste pickup starts, all that kind of information is in here. Phone numbers to call for city staff. We sometimes take for granted, because this appears quarterly in our mailboxes, that it's just another piece of mail to kind of set aside. It is very helpful to you as a resident, business owner, with the information that's in it. And I was really struck by the city manager's letter in it. He's not here for me to commend him personally. I'll have to drop him an email. But he took the time to really kind of characterize, when we had the major snowstorm, the Super Bowl Sunday, what an amazing feat it was on the part of our DPW to have all the streets, major and local, were cleared within 30 hours. An incredible feat given the magnitude and span of our city. And I want to express appreciation for the work that the DPW did. Kind of bridging on Councilman Pennington's comments about Safe City, that's a piece of it that helps keep us safe. It allows our first responders to get to people when we do this well. And there's a lot of locking arms in that effort. There's a great letter in the council packet tonight from Alice Sevis regarding Officer Joe Mouch, who that morning, through some creativity, helped someone get to a surgery they needed to get to just by that individual following in his tire tracks, because he could get through. We had our volunteer firemen that, anticipating the storm, made sure they were sleeping at our fire stations so they could be on hand to, there again, help law enforcement get places to respond to a car fire. These are the things that make Troy amazing, and we always have work to do. We always have issues to work through and improvements to make, but really want to express appreciation to the members of city staff that use that creativity to look after the citizenry. And that's the role of government, is to keep people safe, to help them get to work, to help them when they need a response. And it's our priority, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Councilman Gottlieb.
And there's also a really nice photograph in there, too. But I wanted to thank the individual who brought the garbage to the attention and say that if there's anything we can do to address those concerns. I really appreciate the fact you brought that up here and said that instead of me going the other way, because I agree with you.
Yeah, our format doesn't allow for interaction, but I couldn't agree more with what Mr. Stafford said this evening. In fact, it cost me a blade on my snowblower because that piece of newspaper turns into a piece of ice. And so I have some sympathy there, but I will defer to the city attorney if you want to say anything this evening, or if you want to get back to us at the next meeting, whatever you prefer. I know I don't know that we can do anything about it.
Yep. Mayor, I can just tell you that, several years ago, this issue, we looked into it. I've not done it recently, but several years ago we did. We were asked to pursue some littering complaints. It did not rise to the level of littering. We did not pursue any criminal prosecutions, but we did work with the newspaper carriers in trying to get them to stop doing what they were, and it worked for a while. I'm sure that city administration, management, and my office would be happy to try and reach out to the newspaper carriers and communicate frustrations and the dangers and the potential damage. So we would be happy to do that. If you want a formal report on whether or not an ordinance or something can be enacted, I can come back to you with that, but I guess I would prefer at this point in time to try and handle it through other channels first.
I'm okay with that, but I couldn't agree more with Mr. Stafford that it, of all things, it's an indicator that people aren't home. When you see 3 or 4 of those papers sitting in someone's driveway, then you make every effort that you can to make sure your house doesn't look like you're not home, and then this happens. So, yeah, if you can think of some ways to get the message back out, I think it needs to be reinforced again. Councilman Henderson.
I'll concur that Mr. Stafford's issue is a problem at my house as well. I've called the circulation departments many times trying to get the problem rectified, and sometimes it's effective. We have the boxes under our mailboxes, and they'll switch from the end of the driveway and maybe put them into boxes, and then it seems like they'll switch up delivery methods, and then the new person comes and throws them on a drive again. So it is an ongoing situation.
I think sometimes we just need to kind of reinforce things again when they kind of get stale. So it sounds to me like we need to do that again. Councilman Teets.
It might be appropriate to invite those newspapers, their folks, to come speak to the council and explain why they're doing this. I mean, it seems to me that it's impossible to opt out of this unsolicited advertisement. And so I think we need to make it clear to them that it's not appreciated. And so if we would like to, and I could certainly reach out to them, invite them to come and explain why they think throwing a newspaper that I don't want in my driveway will make me a happier citizen, then they can explain that to the citizens. But I think that, I mean, it's a worthy conversation. If they think that's the way to generate goodwill and good business in Troy, I think they would be happy to appear here. So if I or the city manager or city attorney, we could certainly invite them and they can explain why they don't allow people to opt out. Or maybe there is a system and we just, everyone that I know doesn't know about this magical system. And so I think, let's be very direct. Sometimes there isn't a need for a law. Sometimes there's just a need for real direct communication to these businesses.
I agree 100%. Perhaps if the city attorney wanted to draft a letter and have each council member sign it, and we can mail it to each of the carriers in the area, I think I'd be happy to sign that, and we can invite them here to speak if they would like to. But I'd be happy to sign a letter.
Thank you.
Is there a consensus for that?
Yes.
We'll do all we can, Mr. Stafford, but please understand we do have some limitations ourselves. But thanks for bringing that to our attention. A couple more things that I'd just like to briefly, a special thanks to Station 6 that invited council for dinner and staff to dinner a week ago or so. It was a great time, good interaction, good food. Firemen know how to cook.
Thanksgiving in February.
Thanksgiving in February, for sure. The other things that, if I could get some thought, this is the second time that I've listened to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents, and we don't have it in our rules to be able to respond right after that. I'd like to look at inserting the same rule that we have for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and maybe have the same thing after L.
So we could interact?
So we can respond to a citizen that may say something at item L. Okay, we have consensus to bring that to the table.
I'm sure Ms. Dixon has already got it to.
I can bring a draft revision to the rules back next time.
Thank you. Thank you. And any other comments this evening? I just want to say that our thoughts and our prayers are with Tony Pallotta, especially this evening, and, God bless him. Any discussion on the reports this evening? I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. There's no closed session this evening, so we are adjourned. Thank you for coming this evening.